Hey man, good evening, good evening again. Just want to welcome you guys back to the Conversation 9-8, and I'm truly excited, truly happy to be back before you again today. So, man, I hope everybody's doing well. All is well with me. Really enjoying myself. It's been raining today, but that ain't no thing. Just taking 2024 in stride, because guess what? 2024 is here and it's going strong. It is going strong. Like it or not, it's gonna be here and it's gonna do what it do. But man, I hope you guys are doing well. I hope all is well with you. My prayer is that everything is going the way that people would like. Um, but if not, man, I hope that as we get prepared and we continue to grow, that all things are well. All things are well. But man, excited about another week, another episode. Excited about being back before you again today. Make sure you share this. Let me know where you're tuning in from, so we can go ahead and get this thing on the road. Get this thing on the road. Uh, Shout out to my big brother Eric, man. Had his birthday yesterday, man. Love you, big bro. Love you, love you. You mean a lot to me, and appreciate you. But tonight, man, I'm excited about this topic. Shout out to my friend Matt Roberts. Matt, appreciate you, man, for the inspiration. Uh, Reached out to me, and he is the inspiration for the show tonight, the topic for the show tonight. So, and I thank him for that. Again, appreciate you guys. Just sending this out so we can send this out to a few people, and man, we're gonna get right on to it. But I hope, man, I hope everybody's going well. I hope everything is going right with people and there's no issues. And hey, man, just everybody talk about good vibes. But me, I'm gonna just say, man, blessings to everybody, and I hope all is working out. But we're gonna go ahead and get started tonight. Tonight episode, we're gonna talk about um, how to cope with and accept the person we become as we deal with changes in life. And that was presented to me. And one of the things I'm thinking about, how do we cope with and accept the person we become? Because in life, the reality is life, there are going to be changes. There'll be changes, and there'll be, in life, there will be things that we're going to have to face. And it's not always hard things, but just living life, there's things that's going to change. Dynamics going to change. As you get older, dynamics will change in your relationship with people. Dynamics will change in your relationship with parents. Dynamics will change. And I'm telling you, those things will happen. It is inevitable that they will happen. But how do you cope with and accept the changes that you change as a person? Because we change from our experiences. Nobody stays the same. I don't care how you try to line it up. I don't care how you try to argue it. Nobody stays the same. But how we cope with and accept the changes that we have says a lot about who we are. It says a lot about who we are as a person. Shirley Shepard, how you doing? Good evening. Good evening to you. How you doing, ma'am? But yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I mean, how to cope with, and accept? And that was a question that was presented to me. But those are things that we should think about and like seriously sit down and think about, right? Because it's hard for us to accept. It's hard for many of us to accept and cope with the changes we have in our lives because we spend so much time lying to ourselves about who we really are, and we don't acknowledge the impact that something has had on us in our lives, and we are thinking that we're the same, but with everybody else interacting and being around us, they know that it's something different. So what we end up having to do is we have to really get to that space and stop lying to ourselves about who we are. And one of the things about coping with and accepting is getting to the reality, accepting the reality that this is who you are right now. You are not the same person that you used to be. You're not the same person that you think that you used to think that you are. It may be, you may be drastically different based off of whatever situation or whatever circumstances that you may have faced and went through. But it's okay. But to get past that, you have to accept the reality and accept and embrace the reality of who you are in that moment. You have to do that. And regardless of however we try to slice it, you got to do that. It is so imperative that you do that. And the reason why it's imperative that you accept the reality of who you are is it will weigh a heavy weight on you getting to peace in your life. One thing about it, the people that are around you, that are the closest to you, you can go to them and they'll tell you the truth about who you are. You just got to be willing to accept the reality of what they're telling you. And it will let you know who you are. That's how one of the things about how to cope and accept the person is you got to be willing and open to receive honest feedback about who you are as a person. Because a lot of us don't like doing self-assessments. We don't like doing self-assessments. We say we do, but we don't want the real. We don't want to accept the realities of who we are if it's not favorable or if it's changing and not fitting the image that we want to portray ourselves to be. And the reason why we stay in that space, the reason why we stay there is simply because it becomes a comfort zone to us. But a lot of us don't even realize we become so difficult that other people that are closest to us just end up having to survive just to be around you, all simply because you too afraid and too scared to sit there and address and get to know yourself. Like, you have to do that. That's one of the ways to how to cope with and accept the person. You got to be open to feedback. You have to. You know, you have to. People shouldn't have to walk on eggshells around you to tell you the truth about yourself, and especially the people closest to you. Some of us, we go through things and we have life-changing things happen. We may have had a death in the family. We may have had a child. We may have things that change our life. The dynamics change in our lives. And yes, we are the same person. We still have our same identity, but that doesn't mean that it didn't impact how we approach life or how we address and deal with certain things. And we have to be willing to say, hey, in order to cope with that and accept it, I got to be open to feedback. I have to be open and honest about, hey, I've changed. And that's not always a bad thing, because some things will never go back to how it was before based off of what happened. And that's okay. But you got to be willing to say, hey, that impacted me and I changed from it, and stop trying to view it from what it used to be. And I think that's a hard thing for many of us. That's a hard thing for many of us, a very hard thing, because many of us, we spend so much time trying to view things from what it used to be, view things from the lens of what it used to be. And we're viewing it from the lens of what it used to be, but what it used to be doesn't line up with what it is right now. And we get mad at anybody that would suggest it of what it is right now. Because in our minds, we're trying to convince ourselves, or we're trying to lie to ourselves to convince ourselves that it's being what it is right, what it used to be. And it's not like what it was yesterday. It will never be like what it was yesterday. It will never be that way again, because something happened to shift that dynamic. And we got to be open to accept that in order to deal with it. But a lot of us, we end up suppressing this thing for a lot of different reasons. We have life-changing experience, but we suppress it because of guilt. We suppress it because we didn't do what we supposed to do. And we suppress it because we feel like if I just deny it, that means that it didn't happen. And it happened. It happened. Seriously, it happened. And you can get mad, but that's just what it is. And one of the things you have to look at is, things that happen to people. Many things happen to people in their lives that it's hard for them to accept because of the impact that it had on them. Like, many people change after they have a loss in the family. You can have a parent loss. Like, my dad passed away, and yes, I love my dad. Yes, I've gone through the process of grief, but my life would never be the same like it was before, because my dad is no longer here. My oldest brother just passed away recently. My life would never be the same because my oldest brother is no longer here. And if I don't get to the space to where I can accept that reality and I just move on like everything is okay, then I'm fooling myself. I'm lying to myself, and I'm not doing myself a good service. And that's what many of us do. We just be like, oh, well, I'm good. But everybody else around us is impacted because they can feel the change and see it. They can feel and see the change. But a lot of us, we try to act like, no, I'm good. No, listen, I'm telling you, man, so many relationships are eroded and destroyed because people refuse to accept and acknowledge how they have changed or how something has changed them. And they, in their mind, they try to be like they're okay, they good, but everybody else around them have to deal with the consequences of it. And then those same people, what they do is, in their mind, they convince themselves that everybody else the problem because they don't understand. No, the people understand. They're just saying you've changed. There's something different. And in order to deal with and accept the person that you became, and you got to first not only acknowledge it, but be willing to say, hey, I have changed. This has changed me. And then now once you get there, once you realize and accept that it has changed you, that's when you can start moving forward to be like, oh, now I can realize how it impacted those around me. And now I can fully embrace my new reality, because your reality would never be like what it was. Your reality would never be like what it was. And I know that, one of the things that happened with this, and I know a lot of people don't like to talk about it, but losing a parent, man, can be or a close loved one it changes a lot of people. Losing a child changes a lot of people. Losing a spouse changes a lot of people. Losing somebody very close to you, it changes you. It does change you, right? But in order to accept and cope with it, you have to accept the reality that it did change you. And in order for you to accept the reality that it did change you, when you first do that, now you can go and start addressing and start dealing with the impacts of how it changed you and what ways it changed you. Now you can start figuring out what's your new reality, what's your new normal. Instead of you trying to suppress it and then put it off on everybody else, it's on you to accept that. You have to accept it to cope with it, because you as a person, you have changed. No matter how much you try to justify it, you have changed, and there's nothing wrong with it. And I want us to really understand that there is nothing wrong with it, but it is something wrong. And yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and hit that one. That's a good one. That's a good one. We all will be subject to change. We all are, and there's nothing wrong with change. The problem come in is when you have changed, but in your mind you're feeling like that you're who you used to be. And we all continue to evolve as people. We all continue to evolve through our life experience. We all continue to evolve through incidents and things, situations and circumstances that happen to us. We all continue to evolve and change and grow throughout our lives. Right. I'm 44 years old right now. I'm not the same person that I used to be, even when I was 42. I'm not the same person I used to be when I was 38. I'm not the same person I used to be when I was 21. Just through life experience, you change, right? And there's nothing with that change. But in order to cope with and accept that you have changed, you got to be willing to say, hey, acknowledge the fact that you did change. You have to be able to do that. And many of us, we struggle with that. Many of us struggle with accepting the fact that we change, because we create this false sense of reality and this utopia in our head that, hey, I'm still the same person. Yes, you may still have some of the same personality traits. You have your same isms. You have your same preferences. Yes, we remain the same in a lot of different areas. But who we are mentally in that moment, we constantly change. And we got to, in order to deal with the changes that we have and to be able to accept and cope with the ever-changing, I would call it metamorphosis that we go through, the transformations that we have as a person, we first have to be willing to fully acknowledge that I have changed. And because I've changed, these are the things that are different about me. And how does that impact those that are closest to me? That is the key to a lot of us mending many relationships that we have in our lives. That is the key. But the problem is, many of us, we won't do that. Many of us, we will not do that. We'll sit around and act as if everything is good. We'll act as if all is well. And a lot of us, we don't want to deal with that reality because we try to suppress things or whatever it may be and try to ignore it like it doesn't happen, like it's not real, but it is. And I'm so glad that Matt reached out and was like, hey man, he asked this question, hey, how do you cope with accepting, the person that you are? And one of the things is, it becomes hard for us to accept the person that we are, because many times situations and circumstances that we find ourselves in life is a result of our choices. And it may be some negative things that we have to deal with based off of the choices that we make. The key in those situations is own the fact that you made those choices and get to a space where you can learn to forgive yourself for that. Hey, yeah, listen, we all make I make dumb choices even to this day. The key to overcoming a lot of that is just, hey, I made those choices. Now forgive myself. And not only forgive myself, once I forgive myself, I can start dealing with the what led me up to it. But if I'm always in denial or always having a woe is me and never want to sit down and take ownership, then that leaves me stuck in that place. And then the people around me will have to suffer because I'm miserable and I don't want to deal with and address me. That's what it is. Hey, what's up, Duck? How you doing, man? Appreciate it. Just deal with it and address me. And this is not, I'm just saying seriously. And I know, and I know for a fact that it's hard. It's hard for a lot of people. Forgiving yourself is hard. It's one of the hardest things that we will have to do. And the reason why it's hard for many of us is we feel like we don't deserve it because we know how maybe stupid or how unwise the decision was or how easily we was influenced. And we look back and we're ashamed of ourselves for a lot of our choices. But that's just part of life. That is part of life. And if we don't embrace that and accept that, then it's hard for us to really overcome a lot of things. And then a lot of us, that's when we will get to the space where we try to create this utopia like we good, and we don't never address the person that we become. And we still looking through the lens of who we used to be. And everybody else around us can see that we different. But now in our mind, we done convinced ourselves, no, I'm still the same. No, you're not. What you went through impacted you. And as soon as you embrace that, that's when you can start coping with it and moving on. That's when you can start doing it. A lot of us don't want to do it. And I know it can be hard. And I know these things that, we don't really like talking about. People don't talk about a lot of this stuff all the time. This is not the sexist stuff. This is not the stuff that we can start, this us versus them and this aside. Now, when you start talking about things that deal with the individual and personal accountability, that's hard for a lot of people to truly accept, truly embrace. And that's just what it is. But I mean, we have to get to that space. We really have to. And when we start talking about changing as a person, we all change as people. We all have things that we're going to deal with. We all have things that we're going to struggle with, grow from. We're going to have highs. We're going to have lows throughout this 4-letter journey called life. It is inevitable that we have to change, and we change as people. So why are you still trying to walk around like you got the same mentality you had in 2000, and it's 2024? You don't even have the same. I'm telling you, you're not the same person you was in 2023. Some things have changed, right? You have evolved in some areas. In order to cope with and deal with the person that you are, you have to accept and embrace that you have changed. You have to be self-aware enough to embrace the reality that, hey, I've changed, and then now figuring out who you become in that space where you have changed. You're right, Duck. Self-awareness and self-accountability. And self, like anything, and you know what's so fun? I'm glad that you brought that up, Duck. Appreciate it. One of the things that's so funny is it is easy for us to champion things for other people. And it's so easy for us to hold other people accountable, for things that we don't like ourselves, or we struggle with ourselves. Like, we'll hold somebody else to be aware. We won't definitely hold somebody else accountable. We'll hold somebody else to be disciplined. But when they talk about, you put that self in front of it, self-awareness, self-accountability, self-discipline. Now we come up with all these excuses why, hey, we try to justify all of that stuff when we got to do the work. And why is it that so easy? Because it's so easy for us to look at and hold other people accountable, but we want grace when it comes to us. No, we still have to do the work ourselves. We got to do the work. We have to work on ourselves. We got to hold people accountable the same way we want to hold somebody else accountable. We got to be willing to hold ourselves accountable in that same manner. We have to. Flo, what's up? Flo said, I love the multiple subjects that you cover. It's really crazy to know that most of them can all start being addressed with our own personal accountability. Man, look, Flo, man, look, I'm gonna tell you, bro. I'm gonna tell you. This is why it's hard for a lot of people, but healing starts with yourself. True healing starts with yourself. True healing starts with self-accountability. True healing starts with you taking ownership of the things you did or the role you played in the situation, regardless if you made a decision. If you don't start to deal with yourself, somebody can do you wrong. Somebody can do wrong by you, but you still have to take accountability of the role you played. I'm not saying that you're the one at fault, but if we take personal accountability, we'll realize a lot of the issues that we have will really go away. And the reason why they'll go away is because now we're taking ownership to clean it up, and we ain't expecting somebody else to come in and clean up for us. We're being an individual. We're being responsible. And we're being that person that just say, hey, I'm going to start working on me. I'm going to sweep around my own front door, and I'm going to clean up my own mess. And once you clean it up, you stop worrying about what somebody else did. Matt, what's going on? He said, I had to finally accept and embrace it was my fault to my ex, and I'm a new person. Man, I appreciate that, man. And I would, you know what's so powerful about that? And this, man, I'm glad that you brought that up. Appreciate it, Matt. When we take ownership of that it was actually our fault, and we stop trying to justify stuff and like seriously come in and take ownership of it, man, you eliminate so much other stuff. Because what we realize is in that space, we realize we've wasted so much time, energy, and effort trying to convince ourselves or find fault with somebody else when we know at the beginning, we know we was the ones at fault. But we sit and try to justify it. No, if you did something wrong, own it. Just take ownership of it. Hey, I was wrong on that one. Not, well, I did it because now she made me. No, you made that decision. And a lot of times once we do that, what we realize is the reason why we look to blame other people for stuff, especially in relationships, the reason why we look to blame other people for stuff and justify what we did is because we expect those other person to be a coping mechanism to cover up the wounds that we had in the first place. We do that. We expect other people to take ownership for things that they ain't had no responsibility for. That's what we do. You don't believe me? Let me break this thing down.